Welcome to Papa's Workshop. In today's video, we're going to be assembling the FOXALIEN Basic Edition of the 4040XE. This is a perfect machine for anyone that's considering getting into the CNC world without spending a fortune. This will be able to give you all the different features that you want to have in a CNC machine, and you can even upgrade this machine to add a laser and a larger spindle. Also, I'm going to have a link in the description below. Should you decide to go to their website, you can explore all of the different options that they have and make your purchase. Now, that is an affiliate link, and I do appreciate any support that you choose to give. But for now, let's go ahead and get started building and assembling this CNC machine. Another day in the shop with Papa and Papa's Workshop. To support this channel, please go to patreon.com/Papa's Workshop. In today's video, we're going to be assembling the FOXALIEN 4040XE Basic Edition. This just came in the mail. This is the CNC. This is the basic unit by FOXALIEN. And today we're going to go ahead and open this one up and get it put together. And when you open this box, of course, you're going to find that it's very well packaged. You have the parts list here of everything that you have in this CNC. Of course, you have the user's manual. This is going to be the waste board, the USB cables, and a test block. We'll go ahead and pull this out. And one thing that you're going to notice is everything is always very, very well packaged. These are all the nuts, bolts, screws, everything that you need to assemble it. You have a little brush to be able to keep everything dusted off. Of course, you have some bits as well that they send. You have the tool kit to be able to assemble it, and some hold down clamps. We have some brackets here, and we have the probe, and we'll get to all of this a little bit later on. And we have some parts here that we'll use to be able to put the machine together with. You have the drag chain is already pre-wired. And then we have the various parts. I'm going to go ahead and get these out. And I want to get everything out so that I can have the box out of the way. And when I get down to the next layer, again, you can see everything is very well packaged. So we've got the power cord. This is going to be the Z-axis. Again, all pre-assembled and ready to go. This little wire here on the limit switch did get bent, but that will just come right back into place. We'll have to get that adjusted because both of those are bent, but they're not broken. And then we have the X-axis for the gantry on here. That's already all pre-assembled. And of course, we've got the control board right here. The remaining part of the power cord. There we go. Then we have the Y-axis. This is one. Again, everything is set up on here. And here's the second one. And that's everything that's in the box. So we can go ahead and get this out of the way. When you start to assemble this, you're going to find that the instructions are very detailed, and they show you exactly step by step what you need for each part of the assembly, and exactly step by step as to how it goes together. The other thing that you're going to notice is all of the holes are already drilled and tapped. So again, that makes the assembly where it goes together very, very quickly. And these are the first two pieces that we need. Those will go right there. And then we'll need to get the axis here. So step one is done. We have these two parts and these two parts laid out. The next thing that we're going to need to be able to do is get these acrylic sheets. And the other thing that you'll notice, they test fit this at the factory. So if you look at that in the light just right, you can see where this was pre-assembled and tested. So you know everything is going to go together well. Now the next thing I want to do is take these parts and lay them out so I know exactly where they need to go. And then from there, let's grab the bag with the screws. This is the little box with all the screws in it. And it tells you right here which screws that you're going to need, washers, everything. Correspondingly, everything is clearly labeled on this little box, so you know exactly which ones to get. As you assemble this, you have 3 screw holes here. You have 2 down here. These 2 take the M5 by 20. It's a little bit longer. So these are the 2 that actually go into here. The M5 16 will go into these 3 holes. Very important to be able to keep that separate, and it's important to be able to remember this so that you don't find yourself having to take the machine apart and change this out. The next thing, these are already pre-drilled, so you're just going to be able to screw them in place. Now the other thing I want to point out, you have these little, they call them spring washers, I call them lock washers, but that will go on first, and then you'll put the little flat washer on. And that's also very important to be able to have this spring washer act as the lock washer to be able to keep this tight. The other thing I want to point out to you, these holes down here are slotted. And the reason that's important, even though it's threaded and you're screwing it into the aluminum bars here, this allows you to be able to move it left and right to be able to get the machine square. And that is critical to be able to have a good operating machine. So I'm going to go ahead and put this one on now. So I have the front one done. So I'm just going to lay that down right here. And I'm going to go ahead and do the back one now. Okay, I have the front one is finished. I also have the back one finished. And right now, these are just hand tight. They're just barely on there because I'm going to have to adjust these to be able to get the machine square. So hand tight is all you need right now. Now that I have the X-axis done, I'm going to go ahead and put the Y-axis on, and this will actually sit right on top, just like this, and we'll put the screws in to here. Now these screws, these screw holes are not slotted, so this will just screw in and can be tight, because this is the part that's going to slide left and right to allow us to get the machine square. Now to be able to put this part on, I'm going to use the M5 by 16 with the spring washer or the lock washer, and of course the flat washer will go on there. And if you look closely, it does require all three. So you're going to put 3 screws into this. Now the base frame is actually assembled, but it's not tight, and you can see how it's moving. Now the good thing is, so far I have only hand tightened it. I have not used the tools, but it is time to get the tools out, because I need to go ahead and tighten the screws that hold the Y-axis. And that is these 3 vertical screws. I do not want to tighten these 2. Remember, we have to square this machine base before we go any further. So I'm only tightening these 3 all the way around. Over here, these 3 will get tightened. And what that will do, it'll make sure that the Y-axis is parallel, because they're all pre-drilled holes, and we're going to verify that also. And then we'll be able to square the machine. Now you have these wires right here. These wires are actually going to come over. Now these wires are actually going to come over and plug in right here. But I don't want to plug them in yet, because they will be in the way on the next step that I do. At this point, the base is actually completed. And according to the instructions, if you flip the page, it actually shows the final assembly and where the base is completely done. And it shows as the next step to be able to go ahead and put in the wasteboard. Now the wasteboard will help square the machine, but it's not necessarily going to get it perfectly accurate. So what I'm going to do now is show you exactly how I go about squaring the machine, so I know that this base frame is 100% square. And what I need you to do is get 2 sticks that can fit from corner to corner. But I don't need them the full length. What I need is a stick that's longer than halfway. So somewhere along in this distance. So if I measure that, somewhere around 19, 20 inches is fine. So I'm going to go ahead and cut 2 sticks 20 inches long. So let's take a look now. I cut my 2 sticks, and they're approximately 20 inches long. They could be anywhere from 18 to maybe 23, 24 inches. Doesn't really matter. But this is just under 20 inches. So I have my 2 sticks to be able to measure from side to side. And this actually is a lot more accurate than trying to get a tape measure and line it up and make sure that we're square by measuring the tape measure in each direction. Now I temporarily put the gantry on so that I could keep everything square. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this all the way forward until it touches the stop right here. And then I'm going to tighten up these screws on the bottom. And that's really all I need. Now I know that this measurement now is exactly correct, because if this pulls forward, there's not going to be any binding or any problem there. I need to make sure that the back also is going to be this exact distance. But I don't need the gantry on here anymore. I'm going to go ahead and take that off. We'll set that back out of the way. And I'm going to get another stick now. And I want to make sure that it's exactly this distance. The most accurate way to do this is actually do it with the machine here, not with a tape measure. So there's the mark right there. I'm going to cut this on the table saw. Okay, now that my stick is cut, I want to go ahead and fit it in here and make sure that it fits perfect. And that does. That is exactly what needs to be. So I need this stick now back on the back side, and that's going to ensure that I am parallel with my y-axis. So very, very important. So I have this stick now in position, and it's going to hold it exactly where it needs to. And I'm going to go ahead and tighten down just one side. So now I know that the two sides on the y-axis are parallel, because this slips in here exactly as it should, and it slips in the back side exactly as it should. Now we still have one side here that's not, and this is where I'm going to put my two sticks in place. And I'm going to line them up so that this is nice and flat. And I'm going to draw a line. And then I'm going to take and rotate this. I'm going to put them right here and right at this point, and I'm going to draw a line. When this is perfectly square, you will have one line. And that is perfect. I cannot believe that. That's rare that that happens. So I know that this is square. So I'm going to go ahead and tighten this now. I don't think that has ever happened before when I was assembling a CNC machine. But I promise you this is a lot more accurate than trying to do it with a tape measure. So now I have all the screws tight, and I want to verify that that is correct. So I'm going to put this in again, and I'm going to use a different point because I don't want to use the same point. I'm just going to draw some lines through it and put that right in here. Slide it in. Make sure that this is perfectly flat. I'll draw my line. So there is my line right there. And I'm going to rotate this around. Put this here and there. Again, make sure that that is flat. Now we have a line. And again, there is one line there. That is perfect. That's how you square the machine the most accurate way that I've ever been able to figure out a way, and it works every single time. So now this is parallel on the y-axis and is square to the entire base. Now let's move on to the next step and put the wasteboard in. Now the wasteboard actually attaches by these holes right here. They too are slotted, and because we have the screws in here, these holes are already drilled and tapped. So all we need to be able to do is just align the wasteboard and then be able to screw it in. That will drop in right there. This one will drop in right here. Now the screws that we use to attach the wasteboard to are the M5, and these are the 20s. And because the machine is totally square now, it makes putting these in very, very easy. They literally just drop in place and screw in. I'm going to align this so it's centered. And then I'm going to go ahead and tighten them down. And just to make sure, what I'm going to do, that slides in there. I'm going to mark a mark right here. we'll switch this around and see if it's the same. So I can move that over just a little bit. I'm going to do the same thing here. I have my mark right there. So I know that's exactly where it needs to be. And just pull that out. And then we'll just snug up these screws. They don't have to be super duper tight because you'll end up, you don't need to have these really, really tight because you'll end up damaging the wasteboard itself. Do be careful around this circuit board because it would be easy to damage this. All right, there we go. The wasteboard now is finished. It is on. Now it's time to be able to put the gantry on once and for all, and that will go in here. Now to mount this, it takes the M512 screw, and it will take 2 on each side. It also requires the flat washer, and it requires the little lock washer as well. Now in looking, I have the 4 screws. I do not have the washers and the lock washers. I'm missing 3 of each. I'm going to look in the box first just to see if they're there, and then I'm going to have to be able to go ahead and get some out of my set to be able to put this together. Now after looking in the box and looking through all the different parts, those 3 washers and 3 lock washers were missing. So I just went ahead and grabbed some out of the parts box that I have so I can go ahead and put this together. Now you have the 2 holes here that are drilled and tapped, and it will go through these 2 places right here. Now I have these hand tight. I want to make sure, because you can see the movement here, I want to make sure that that is square to the wasteboard. And by doing that, you can see it's not. So I'm going to rotate it till it is square, and then I'll be able to tighten it. So again, this is a very important step to be able to improve the quality of the carving that you do. You want to make sure that that is perfectly square to the wasteboard. Now one thing I want to point out, as I assemble this, I'm not using any type of thread lock. And over time, if I find that this machine does get loose with the various screws, this is what I use. This is the thread locker, and it is the blue. There are 2 different types. There's a blue and a red. The blue is removable, so that should you need to remove the screws, you can. And then there's a red that's permanent. Do not use the red. So if you choose to use the Loctite on any of the screws, make sure that you use the blue so it's removable. Now I'm choosing not to do that because I really haven't had a problem with the screws coming loose. But that's something I want to be able to point out to you, and it would be your choice. Okay, the next thing we're going to assemble is the Z-axis. There are 4 holes on the back that we're going to be using to mount this, and it's going to be going right on here. And to do this, we're going to need to have the M5, and these are the 10s. So I need 4 of those. Easiest way to do it is just go ahead and put the screw onto the end of the wrench and slip it through. And then from there, we'll just line it up with the hole and screw it in position. Now we'll do that 3 more times. And again, as part of the assembly, before we tighten it, I need to make sure that this forms at 90 degrees also. And you can see right here, there's a significant gap, and it touches down here. So I'm going to adjust this until this is perfectly square to the wasteboard. Again, this is very, very important to be able to make sure you do that. And unfortunately, it does not discuss that in the manual. So if you're brand new to the CNC world, this is a critical step that I want you to remember. Please make sure that your machine is square on all 3 axes. Now I've made the adjustment, I have it tight, and you can see now is exactly the way it needs to be. It's touching, and that forms a perfect 90-degree angle to my wasteboard. Now the next thing we have to do, using these M5 10s, is to mount these brackets. Now these brackets will go, so that bracket will go right in here. And there's another one that will come on this side, and this bracket will go right here. So that screw will slip through there. And that just screws in, and then we'll tighten that down. Do the same thing over here. Slip that screw through, put this right up into this spot, and we'll tighten that down as well. Now that those brackets are on, we need to go ahead and attach this bracket. To do that, we have two of the M5s, and these are the 6mm. So this just literally slips right up here, and then this will screw in. Now I can slide this left and right so that it comes where it's totally flush on each side right there. And then I'm going to go ahead and tighten it. This next bracket will go in, and it goes in on the back right-hand side. And this has the two T-nuts, and it has this. So these just slip in. You can rotate them, and they fall right into place. And this needs to be all the way to the back, and then we'll just tighten that down. And the T-nuts work real well. So now we have all the brackets in place, and we're ready to attach the drag chains. And we have two drag chains. One is for the X-axis, and one is for the Y. So I'm going to go ahead and lay these out, and we're going to take a look at them. So this one, you can see, has for the Y1 motors and the Y limit, which is over here. And this one is going to go along this side. So that will go right in here. And this will sit right up on top like this. Let's go ahead and get the screws now so we can get this mounted. Now to mount this, this takes the M4, it's a little flat cap head type screw. So that's what we're using to mount this in position. You do have to be careful with the wires to get the wires out of the way. And then this will just drop in place. And we also have two right here that we're going to have to do the same thing with. And they'll screw in there. And again, gently, we're going to move these wires out of place so we can slip that right into position. Then we're going to do the same thing now. We're going to attach this drag chain right here. The last two screws will go right here for this drag chain. Again, we'll gently pull these wires out of the way. Now we have the drag chains in place. The next step, we're going to connect all of these wires. Now the next thing I want to do in starting to put the wiring together is go ahead and put the control board on. Now it has the little T-nuts already mounted, and that will actually go right in here. Now I think what I'm going to do though is wait before I actually attach it, because I have plug-ins that will go up here along this area, but I also have some plug-ins that go down here. because this is where my limit switches are. This is where my probe goes. So all of these have to plug in on the bottom. And I'm going to get all of these plugged in before I mount this in position permanently. Now this is the wire for the spindle, and it's clearly labeled. You also have a positive and a negative. And you'll see this is going to be the negative side, and this will be the positive. And this just simply plugs in. So the spindle is done. And I always like to start from the furthest point away from the control board and then work back. So the next thing that I have here is the Y motor, and we'll go ahead and we'll plug that in. Now here's my Y motor right here, and it will plug in at this point. Now the Z motor will plug in right here. And now all that's left are the limit switches. This is the Z limit switch. It will come around. Now the Z limit will plug in right here. And one of the things that I like about the FOXALIEN, you have two limit switches. You have the one here on the bottom, and this wire runs down and connects there. And you also have the limit switch on top to be able to prevent damage. And the last one we have is the X limit. Now this is the X limit right here. And this is where I have the X limit switches right here and right here. It already has the jumper attached. We just need to plug it in right into this position. Okay, and that is done. So all of these wires now are all connected. Now the next one, I want to go ahead and connect this. And you have a long wire that's coming over, and it actually goes underneath here. Slips in, and then it will plug in. And then they will slip in and close these little clips. So once the Y2 motor is connected, you can see how it runs right across here and clips into each one of these little clips. Next, we've identified the Y1 motor, and this will go ahead and plug in here. Likewise, we have the Y limit switches that will go around. Let me show you how that plugs in on the other side. And this limit switch just comes down and plugs in right here. And it just snaps in. While I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and plug in these two. And these are color coded, so that makes it real easy. And we're going to put the first one in on the bottom. And then we'll put the E-stop in. And that is finished. So now all that's left is the control board itself. First thing I want to do is go ahead and plug in the spindle, and that one will go right into this slot. Now in very small letters, it actually shows that this is the X, Y, Y, and the Z. And we need to make sure, because these Y motors are on opposite side, very important to be able to get the correct ones. So the first thing I'm going to plug in is my X motor. And we always verify that is the X motor. So we'll plug that in right here. Now very clearly on the instructions, it will show you next to the X motor will be the Y2 and then the Y1. So we're going to get the Y2 and we'll plug it in. And then we'll plug in the Y1. The last one we have to plug in is the Z motor. So now we have all of these connected. Now we need to work on the ones on the bottom. And the nice thing about it is we've only got 3 left. Plus we also have the probe. And I'm going to go ahead and take care of the probe also during this step. Now again, on here, and I know you're not going to be able to see that in the camera, but these are actually labeled all the way across. So the X limit plugs in first. So that'll plug in right there. Now these 2 wires are from the front, that's the home and the E-stop. The E-stop actually goes into this one right here. It says reset. So that will plug in. Okay. Next we have the Y limit. And then we have the Z limit. The last one we have to plug in is the probe, which goes right here. Now that all these are plugged in, I'm going to go ahead and set this up where I can attach it. And I'm going to attach it using the T-nuts and the M5 screws. Now the one wire that I did not plug in was the home, and it plugs in right there. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. And that completes all of them. Now the next thing I'm going to do is take all these wires and bundle them together and get them organized so that they're not going to get into the way of anything. Now in this package they do have some small zip ties, and that's going to be real handy to be able to use these to get these wires grouped together. Now this completes the assembly of this CNC machine. In the next video we're actually going to start it up, go through some tests, and then we're going to carve out a project. Now this CNC machine is actually the 4040XE Basic Edition. Now this uses the 60-watt spindle and the NEMA 17 stepper motors. Now this is an upgraded 32-bit control board, and it does work more efficient and it's stable. And it does have the home function as well as that emergency stop. Now this CNC machine also is capable of adding the 300-watt spindle upgrade kit, and you can also add the FOXALIEN laser module to it as well. So it's a very capable machine. So if you're brand new to the CNC world or just considering entering into the CNC world and don't want to invest just a ton of money, this is a perfect CNC machine to be able to get you started on a budget, and you can still experience all the joys and the happiness that comes with having a CNC machine in your shop. Now if you haven't done so already, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button and the little bell notification next to it so that you'll be notified on the videos that I'm uploading. And if you found this video helpful, hit that like button also. Thank you for watching today, and I can't wait for the next video where I'm showing this machine in action. Again, thanks for watching. This is going to be a great machine because it's so upgradable. To be able to have the laser added, you can go with the 300-watt spindle, and you can even use the rotary attachment with this. This is a fantastic machine for the beginner and the experienced alike. I look forward to being able to test it out in the next video.